I'm Jimmy, and this is my Week 5 discussion board post. This week we are asked to read Editha by William Dean Howells and The Luck of Roaring Camp by Bret Harte. We were asked two questions about the stories. First, we were asked to think about how women were depicted so far, and have they been fair portrayals of women. Secondly, we are asked to think about masculinity, what makes a man, and what evidence from the two stories did we see this week. First, I'd like to talk about The Luck of Roaring Camp. In this story, there is only a brief amount of time that a female character is present in the camp. The camp is obviously a part of a gold rush, built only as necessary, with nothing more than Tuttle's Grocery that was the town's grocery store, bar, and gambling hall. Cherokee Sal, who is apparently Native American, is the only woman that lives in the town of roughnecks and outlaws. When the story starts off, she is in the middle of giving birth, and she ends up dying almost immediately after giving birth to a baby boy. The town has never really agreed on anything up until this point, but all of a sudden, the men of the town unite in a decision to raise the child. Instead of sending the infant off to a town where there is, in fact, women that are there to take care of and adopt the baby, they raise it on ass's milk. They bring up the fact that they like the town the way it is, and don't think that it is a fit place for any more women to come to take care of Luck. Of course, they end up naming the boy Luck after a very fruitful year of mining for gold. But then a terrible amount of snowfall melts and turns the riverbed they mine into a flooded zone. And so Luck ends up dying in the flood with a lot of other members of Roaring Camp, and the story's over. In Roaring Camp, men are the only gender that is perceived as capable of surviving and living with the tough conditions and atmosphere of the camp. Everyone there can hold their own and has no need to be taken care of or looked after. But interestingly, after the child is brought in, they become much calmer and much more gentle beings. I find it interesting how the men don't think they need women in the camp, but take on a very feminine role after Luck is born. And in Editha, women play a much larger role and stronger role. In this story, Editha, the main character, is engaged to George Garrison. The Spanish-American War is on the verge of breaking out, and George is not happy about the war, and definitely does not want to take part in it. But Editha wants George to be her hero, and writes him a letter basically saying she isn't going to be with him if he doesn't go into the war. She believes a man has to love his country before everything, even his wife. But before she gives him the letter, he ends up joining on his own, probably due to the conversation she had already had with him over some lemonade about basically she was going to leave him if he didn't join. Long story short, he goes to the front lines and gets killed in the first little skirmish the Americans get into. She is sad, but at the same time oddly satisfied by the sacrifice he made. She is proud and does not take long to grieve over his loss. She then sets off to fill out his last request of going to see if she can help his mother in any way. The mother is completely against the war, and gave Edith an earful about making poor Georgie go off to war. She said how all women view the war as heroic, and they're perfectly happy with their man if their man is out there killing some other family's son, some other girl's man, because it doesn't affect them and it empowers them. The women in Editha definitely have strong wills, stronger than the men in the story, in fact. George is very timid at first about the war, but after listening to Editha, decided he better join the war if that is what she wanted him to do. I feel like from George's point of view, he had to do something to prove himself. He was a young lawyer and had pressed Editha with his personality and charm. However, he had not really done anything to woo her. He felt like, to be a man and a hero in her eyes, he had to go off and show her how brave and courageous he could be. In both stories, men share a similar role. They are the courageous and brave people that can go and do anything they set their minds to. It differs from the women characters, however. We barely catch a glimpse of women in The Luck of the Roaring Camp, while in Editha we are inside the mind of a woman the entire time. In Editha, women are very opinionated and stubborn to an extent. Not necessarily in a bad way, but Editha is shown as being persistent to the point that she would have left George if he hadn't tried to become her hero.